a tale as old as time, a transformative work of art, forbidden love, culture clash, a true classic. From the visionary two-time Academy Award-winning director, Ang Lee's Brokeback Mountain.
Oh, God. I just want to make this personal statement. I have no problems if you're gay or you're into gay stuff, but I have no desire to watch two cowboys fall in love. Regardless of how much I respect Jake Gyllenhaal and Heath Ledger.
Yeah. I can't quit you.
I don't know how to quit you. Your dick tastes so good.
You sure do got a mile.
How about we open a vineyard in Northern California? All right, enough gay bashing. The film this month, I should say, rather, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. A truly epic tale of love, loss, and, wire work. What do you think about Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon? How did it hit you after not seeing it for around 20 years?
Well, that's kind of the first thing I'd bring up. I saw this 20 years ago. I saw it at a budget theater, and there was, I'm sure you remember at the time, like there was a lot of buzz around this movie, and
Yeah.
it still is the highest grossing foreign film in the U.S. ever.
Well, that's not surprising because it had, like you said, it had all the juice it needed to do that, and I can't think of another foreign movie that really has even come close to sweeping the United States as much as it did.
Yeah, no, it was a real big moment at the time, and I saw it with my dad. I remember walking out of the theater and being like, yeah, I was very bored. I'll be honest, when I saw it all those years ago. And I never had really any desire to revisit it, even though I've seen most of Ang Lee's films. And 20 years later, it's a long time. I'll be honest, my feelings are kind of the same. I'm very mixed on the movie. Michelle Yeoh is incredible. I've always been a massive fan of her since I saw her in Tomorrow Never Dies in the theater. She's just really talented, just martial artist and an actress.
Yeah.
We're both massive fans of Chow Yun-fat from his work with John Woo and stuff. So
basically everything he did in China. After that,
yeah.
you skip it, let's just say.
Well, not for me, but you know. I love me some Hard Target, but the thing with this film is that I wish they focused on Michelle Yeoh and Chow Yun-fat. I wish it was their story, and it's the other story to me. I find myself not really connecting to I can't remember her name, but the girl.
Let's real quick. The subtitles name her as Jen, but everyone addresses her in their native tongue as Xia Lao, which really confused me. But please continue.
I don't connect with her storyline, her plight. I'm not a fan of wire fu. I never have.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Chinese cinema in general, there's always just been kind of a cultural disconnect for me, besides Jackie Chan films and the John Woo kind of crime films.
Well, you see, the thing is with Jackie Chan and John Woo movies, it's not really about the story. The stories, in most of the Chinese films I've seen, their stories are very simple, very manipulative. Here's the bad guy. They're so bad, they're going to do this. With Jackie Chan, it's about the stunt work, about the fight choreography, about the amazing stunts they're able to pull off. John Woo, it's just all about the action. The stories, well, they're there. They don't really add much to the...
Yeah, they're simple just to propel the story along for another set piece.
That's what I found with most Chinese movies. Very simple, very manipulative.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that the most popular films in China tend to be these wire fu, fantasy, historical epic melodramas. And I don't connect with that. Obviously, both of us do watch a lot of foreign film, but I've always really struggled with these types of fantasy epic kind of movies. And even when Ang Lee was pitching this movie to Michelle Yeoh, he said it was Sense and Sensibility with martial arts. He's describing it as, I think it's Jane Austen or something, British type family drama. So
Yeah.
I just don't really connect with that. But I will say one thing that did stick out after all these years and revisiting it was the two fights with Michelle Yeoh and Jen are just fucking incredible, especially the first one, which is just unbelievable the way it's choreographed. And even though, like I said, I'm not into the whole flying, wire food, jumping, climbing, building thing, it's really, really well done. And it's clear that they spent like a tremendous amount of time just laying everything out, storyboarding it. It's just so organized and it really is going all over the place. And you never lose your sense of direction in these fights. Like have these really beautiful wide angles where you're just seeing all this fight choreography that they've just meticulously trained for. So I would definitely say that I can't really recommend the movie. I'm going to be honest, but I definitely recommend that everyone watch those two fights.
On YouTube or wherever. I can see where you're coming from, but it works for me, the story and plot. See, the fighting to me is pretty standard. Nothing really blew me away except for the wire work. It's used to exaggerate the action. This all feels very Shakespearean to me. So it's funny you said he pitched it to Michelle Yeoh as a Jane Austen novel. I would recommend it. I think it's like a grand epic. Those kind of movies that have everything, a little humor, not a lot for sure, love stories, fighting, this great battle for versus good and evil kind of thing. So I'd say give it a shot if you got a chance.
It's weird because like the first 15 minutes for me, it's just like it just really, really drags, and it's like setting up the story of the sword, and then we get into that foot chase with Michelle Yeoh. I was really blown away. I was like, holy shit, man! I cannot believe that I forgot about this fight scene. It's just really beautiful. There is a really good cinematography in the movie, especially there's a shot about like an hour and 10 minutes into the movie of this mountain.
When they're in the desert or when she's in the desert.
It's this amazing shot of these two characters, and you just see the mountain, just giant mountain in the background. And it's like, holy shit. Like the sense of scale of the land and everything of these wide shots. I would definitely say I think probably Ang Lee was inspired by like John Ford, who made a lot of Westerns. Because just the
Yeah,
way he films,
yeah, I
just
could
the
see that.
desert, the mountains, China, it's really beautiful. And I didn't look up who the cinematographer was, but it's the costume design and everything. It's a lot of love was put into the movie.
It's funny you mentioned that specific scene for
Yeah,
cinematography because that was the one that I really took note of myself. It's two characters in the desert, Xiaolao and Dark Cloud. I believe they're either evading someone, or she's trying to, let's just say, meet up with him for something. Like you said, the set design is incredible. The attention to, I noticed in the very first few scenes in the stone road, they carved out a groove just for
yeah,
the cart's wheels, which it's just a tiny little detail that you didn't have to do. They could have just rode across atop the stone road, but they carved out a groove
right.
to
Yeah, and they probably did that back
for
then.
the cart wheel. That or just the constant wheel going over it wore down, the stone. I don't know. I'm no Chinese
You didn't study
historian.
city planning back in ancient China.
Well, I could have. I just chose not to. I studied feet binding.
Feet binding and the ancient
All right.
concubine rituals.
All right, so that's generalities out of the way. Let's get into the plot, so to speak. Chow Yun-fat, a Chinese renowned sword fighter, adept at virtually all manners of kung fu, decides to hang up his sword, so to speak. A legendary sword, 400 years old. crafted with techniques that have long since been forgotten. He meets up with his friend, Michelle Yeoh. I can't remember her name right now. It's like Xian Lian, maybe, but they've long had a sort of budding romance blocked by one thing. Her former fiance was killed by the sword. Now's the time where Chow Yun-fat is going to give up the world of fighting and a crime to be with his love, Michelle Yeoh, if she'll have him. At the same time, in Beijing, a young chief inspector's daughter is engaged to be married, a forced marriage, an arranged marriage, most people call it, but she longs for Chow Yun-fat's former life of swordsmanship and fighting and not taking showers a lot.
Yeah.
So you didn't care for. I really enjoy the story. This sort of this unrequited love, this longing, this kind of. It all felt, like I said, very Shakespearean to me.
I don't really connect with the characters. Chow Yun-fat really isn't in the movie that much, really, when you think about it. And even Michelle Yeoh, they're really side characters, and it's really just focused on Jen and her journey. I mean, that's the story. That's what they wanted to tell, and it's like you're pushing the most interesting characters to me to the side. And it's interesting because it's like their story's already been told. Michelle Yeoh and Chow Yun-fat, they've already had their, I mean, he even says, I wasted my life. It's showing, kind of how their relationship could have been like Jen and I guess the bandit guy. They missed out on it. So, like you said, it does tie into that kind of Shakespearean, kind of Greek kind of tragedy kind of thing. But as someone who's an action junkie and everything, I just was like, oh man, I would have preferred if it was Michelle Yeoh and Chow Yun-fat and dealing with the witch and things like that.
You felt her arc was superfluous.
Well, I didn't connect with her. I didn't care about her love story. I didn't care about her plight of arranged marriage. I just didn't care about that.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I mean, listen, that's Ang Lee, from seeing what he wanted to do. He achieved his vision, Sense and Sensibility with martial arts. That's what he set out to make, and it does have that quality. For me, complaining about the movie's not what I wanted it to be, it's like, well,
it's not what the filmmaker wanted it to be, what you want.
Yeah. It's tough because, you do see Chow Yun-fat on the front cover, and it seems like it's pushing him as this big part of the movie. And he has a very important role, obviously, as this teacher, but the guy who held the sword. But really, the movie is really not about them.
No, I never thought about it that way until you're bringing this up to me now.
Yeah. I mean, even I haven't rewatched the original trailer from way back then, but when I saw this, I was a big Chow Yun-fat fan. I was seeing even The Replacement Killers and even a mediocre movie like The Corruptor with Mark Wahlberg and stuff. I was a fan of Chow Yun-fat. I thought he was a badass.
What's crazy to me about him is he's like a foot taller than every single person in this movie. It's crazy. And his hands are fucking massive. When he's touching Jen's back at the end of the movie, his fucking hands cover like half her fucking torso, man.
Yeah, it's like I wasn't thinking about that then when you brought up the massage thing. Yeah.
It's a sort of, like I said earlier, it's sort of a great epic. It's got everything you want, and for you, things you don't want, but it really works for me. The entire time you're wishing they just find the sword so they can get on with their lives and be happy together. And Xiaoluo just runs from her parents and goes and finds her love in the desert. But that's not how it works out. One of the major things about this movie is Michelle Yeoh is telling her about how her and Chow Yun-fat love each other, but she made a promise to her dead fiance. She says, and in a way, that's what that's her role in this movie. It's sort of, if not for her, he'd be done sword fighting, she'd be done sword fighting. They'd find happiness together. Right. I have an interpretation about the end tying into this. We'll get into it at the tail end of spoilers, I imagine. So check it out if you want. If not, I guess watch Bulletproof Monk.
The Sean William Scott classic.
This is the spoiler section for Crouching Tiger. What happens is we find out that Xiaolo was not kidnapped, but she chased down somebody who stole something from her while her mother and their band of, Chinese protectors were crossing the desert. After repeated escape attempts, falls madly in love with him, but she has to go back because her parents or the Chinese government sent people to go get her again.
I was just thinking about like there was one nice moment to me that I did like with the love story was when she's hit him in the head and she's gone out into the desert and she collapses and he brings her back and he ties her up. I didn't necessarily like that, but what I'm getting at is
you're on blast now.
what I liked was when he makes the bath for her and he says, and he starts singing.
Yeah, I like that.
And it is kind of a beautiful song as he's singing and going out on the rocks and everything.
I wish I could see what he was singing, because on my Blu-ray copy, it didn't. You just hear him singing, but I don't know. It'd be nice to know the words too.
Yeah, I looked it up on IMDb, and actually I can't remember exactly what he's saying, but it does have it on there.
Okay.
Like a rough translation. It's like a really old dialect that is like barely used now. Apparently, they said the song and stuff. So, but yeah, it was it was a nice song.
One thing about her, she goes unconscious and wakes up in strange beds like 4 times in this movie.
Right. Yeah.
Dark Cloud once, Dark Cloud again. The witch character, Jade Fox, we've neglected to mention really.
Yeah.
And then I think one more time.
Yeah, that almost kind of ties into kind of fairy tale, kind of almost like Sleeping
Yeah, you're
Beauty.
right.
Sleeping Beauty, kind of Snow White.
Evil martial artist Jade Fox is currently disguised herself and is working as a governess, whatever that means, within the Chief Inspector Lee's house. We have a policeman from, I think they said West, trailing her, trying to find her, pretending to be street musicians. And we have Jen being secretly taught kung fu from her, which she uses to steal the great sword, the Green Destiny, and cause havoc all up and down the Chinese countryside.
What did you think about the actress who played Jade Fox?
I thought she did fine, but it was, like I said earlier, typical Chinese manipulation. Oh, she's so evil. She has to scowl at everything. She has to do the most evil things at every moment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was just like, it seems like they really should have cast someone else because it's, you were talking about how there was comedy in the film. I just feel like almost all the comedy is with her, just like her reactions, her face. Even when she even when she throws that blade into the policeman's head, I was like laughing. It's like his reaction, just the way it went into his head. I was like,
did you enjoy that fight?
No, actually, I didn't. I only liked the two Michelle Yeoh.
Okay.
Yeah.
I enjoyed sort of that old kung fu stereotype where, like, yeah, Jade Fox really good, yeah, Xiaolo is really good, but the true master, Chow Yun-Fat, shows up and it's like child's play for him. He's barely trying and he's dominating everybody.
Right. Yeah, it's just that whole scene was almost like played for comedy, especially with that one guy who gets like attached to the tree and he falls down. It's like they're all so fucking incompetent that when the policeman dies randomly, I was like, okay, this is kind of unintentionally hilarious.
Yeah.
That's me. That's my sick, warped mind.
I may be going crazy here, but didn't I warn you about breaking the rules?
I said I'll do anything you want.
Oh, I know you will.
I will say I did really like his blade. His weapon is pretty cool. It's pretty badass.
The weird, like, Klingon-looking thing?
Yeah, it's got like 3 different blades. It doesn't look practical. It looks like you
Not
probably
at all.
stab yourself.
Yes.
But it does look pretty badass.
So we have a few fights. Xiao Lo is married, but she absconds to, I guess, the crime part of China. She proceeds to beat up an entire restaurant full of Chinese swordsmen. Did you like that scene?
No, I've seen kind of scenes like that more many times.
It's reminding me of a Jackie Chan scene that I can't remember.
I just try to stay away. It's just so boring. Slow down, baby.
Some of them want to abuse you. Some of them want to be abused.
There's a drunken master who goes into a cafe and beats everybody.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of Legend of the Drunken Master. Yeah.
Which, as an aside, very good movie. Again, not a great story or plot, but plenty of great action.
Yeah, it's just to serve Jackie Chan.
How do you interpret the ending of this film?
Well, that's kind of is one thing that is interesting, because when I saw this years ago, I mean, I didn't really remember anything. That scene when she tells him to make a wish.
许个愿吧，小胡。
一起回新疆。
My first thought was like, oh, okay, she just killed herself and it's a tragedy and it ends. But then I actually thought about the movie and I was like, oh, wait, no, there's a story about, I can't remember who says it earlier on in the movie.
There was this guy, it was when she was in the desert with Dark Cloud. He says,
我们有一个传说，如果谁敢从那个山上跳下来，天神就会满足他一个愿望。有一个人父母病了。 他就从山，结果他没有死，一点伤都没有。后来他漂泊到一个地方去，再
It's tough because it is a fantasy film. I mean, there's a magic sword in the movie and
yeah,
everything, and people are flying in the air.
it's kind of hard to decode what's meant to be taken as serious and what's meant to be taken as sort of just an exaggeration.
Right. Yeah. So for me, I think she jumped between the mountain and the wish was granted. You know? So maybe she is back in the desert. But then again, you look at him and he's crying as she jumps.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, I will say it is. Even though I don't really connect with those characters, I will say it is a beautiful moment, just the way it's filmed and everything. Speaking about Shakespearean things and stuff like that, the fact that that story was told about someone jumping between the mountain, wish, and everything. I like fairy tales and stuff like that, Grimm's fairy tales, and so I do appreciate that. It is a nice touch, and I see why people maybe find the ending powerful or moving and things like that.
Yeah, I have a wild ass theory about the ending.
Oh boy, here we go. Strap in.
Are you familiar with Donnie Darko?
Yes, yes.
My interpretation of this ending is sort of his wish is none of the movie happened. She never left the desert. With her never leaving the desert, Chow Yun-fat and Michelle Yeoh are able to get back together. She's in the desert happy. So it's like he's sad there right now, but a different him and like, you know, a different sort of multiple universe kind of thing. A different him is happy with her in the desert.
Right. And she would still know everything that did happen previously. Right.
Maybe. I don't know like specifically about that, but perhaps.
Yeah.
In a way, his wish, it undoes all the bad things that happened here, and it undoes.
No, I think that's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah, I mean, you could take a really cynical view of this and just be like, oh, okay, well, she died. She just
killed herself.
Right, because of the knowing that she would get caught and brought back to her husband, and Chow Yun-fat died. She failed to save him, and it's just this tragedy. But I don't buy that. I don't. When I look at it and I watch it, I don't feel that was the intention.
It's interesting you brought up pessimism. I think the ending in the movie as a whole is sort of, you can interpret whatever you want from it. If you're the constant optimist, she undid all the bad things that she did. Everybody's happy. If you're the pessimistic type, she just killed herself because of how big a fuck up she did.
Right.
All right. Do you have any other thoughts on Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
I'll say that I think the movie in terms of just the wire work and everything, it does hold up really well. They did everything practically except for the only CG that was used really was just to remove the wires. It's really impressive, just the way the characters move. They're climbing up buildings, and even a very famous scene that was in the trailers of them in the trees and everything.
Flying from treetop to treetop.
They must have had just cranes and everything around just holding them up, and I'd like to see behind the scenes featurette of just how they really filmed everything, how it looked behind the scenes. So I will say that the only thing that to me visually didn't really hold up that was weird was kind of the rushed kind of fight in the cave when Chow Yun-fat is basically it's a trap. The Jade Fox is shooting all those poison darts. The way that they block them with the swords, that didn't hold up to me. That looked.
There was at least one more scene of that. They just speed up the action. It looks.
Yeah.
It's only for like 1 or 2 seconds, but it really takes you out of the fight scene for a minute.
Yeah, it was just really weird. I wish there was more of a climactic battle with the Jade Fox, but the reality is once again, it's not really about the Jade Fox. It's not about that.
And also, once again, it's like I brought up earlier, Chow Yun-fat's like, he's essentially the man in all of China. Nobody can even come close to touching him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. It should have probably been a little more balanced in the ending scene. But think about it this way, too. Jen is no match for Chow Yun-fat. Jade Fox was no match for Jen. So unless she takes steroids before she gets there, like, there's no chance, especially with Michelle Yeoh there, too.
Yeah, and that the whole her going for the antidote, we've seen that in a lot of films before, but the fact that in most films they always get there in the nick of time, and the fact with this film is that that's never going to happen. Even when she leaves, he's going to die, and I think that scene with him and Michelle Yeoh, it is powerful.
I was just going to ask you about that, if you like that scene.
I do, and that's why I brought up before about I wish they were the central story, because I really connect with them. I believe that there was this immense love between them, but they never vocalized it. And when he does say,
别动情，
生命已经到了尽头，我只有一息，
提升这一口气，到达你这一生追求的境地。别放下。
我已经浪费了这一生，我要用这个气对你说，我一直是。
and that's powerful, and I think that's kind of to show the inverse of what could happen with Jen and the bandit of don't live with regret. Jen could have just lived her life with husband and been very rich and everything and complacent, but she didn't want to do that. It's kind of showing the two sides of these people. I did really like that.
I really enjoyed every conversation between Michelle Yeoh and Chow Yun-fat. Like, after the sword is stolen, Chow Yun-fat comes there and she's like,
你专程赶来北京处理这件事，怎么能说是不在乎？
我来北京以前，并不知道保全侍妾的事。
那你来是？
and then I think he like grabs her hand or something.
Right.
Feeling your hand is like kissing a mountain. I don't know.
Kissing a mountain. Was that the actual line?
Yeah, sure.
Your face is cold like a mountain.
He does say at one point during that scene while he's touching her hands.
你能感觉到它的真实吗？
你的手冰凉凉的，那些练刀练出来的印茧，每一次我看见都不敢触摸。
Well, then that does kind of tie in.
See, motherfucker?
Look at
There's a rhyme to reason.
I'm the asshole here. I'm the asshole. I do have a few more things that I did want to bring up.
Okay.
More trivia. Michelle Yeoh actually tore her ACL in the first fight sequence, that chase sequence. And she actually had to be flown to the U.S. to get the surgery. A lot of her scenes that were filmed were just, of her sitting down or standing later in
talking
the movie before she could heal. So I'm wondering if maybe she was supposed to have more to do, but that ACL injury did kind of throw a wrench into things. I don't
I mean, I
know.
could see that, but
Yeah.
it takes a real long time to recover from that. And
Oh, yeah.
she looked great in that second fight.
Oh yeah. She was amazing in the second fight. She's lifting a lot of shit and throwing it, going all over the place. The other thing I wanted to bring up, which is the title, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Do you know what that means?
He mentions it at some point talking to Michelle Yeoh. It was about his emotions or something, but no, I don't know what it means.
It means hiding your strength from others. And
Okay.
that kind of ties into the characters. They're all kind of hiding something.
Jade Fox is hiding her identity. Xiao Luo is hiding her secret love to be a bandit outlaw with her love Dark Cloud, and Michelle Yeoh and Chow Yun Fat are hiding their secret loves for one another.
Yeah. But the only other thing I have is, did you ever see the sequel that they made on Netflix?
They made a sequel to this?
Came out in 2016. It's Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny. And Michelle Yeoh is, she's the lead.
How was it? Did you see it?
I didn't see it. I was wondering if you saw it.
I didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
And I mean, frankly, I haven't heard anything about it, so I'm betting it's not that great.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything good about it. So when it came out, I was like, yeah, I don't want to watch this. But I have heard that the action scenes are good.
Well, I would imagine so. Like you said earlier, Michelle Yeoh is a consummate professional.
Is there anything else you want to bring up? Do you have thoughts on Ang Lee in general, his career or anything? Or
He went from, you brought it up earlier, the minimal CGI. He went from minimal CGI to fucking, what was it, Life of Pi, which is virtually entire CGI, which is kind of disappointing to me.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I mean, even after this movie, he did Hulk, so he went kind of straight.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, the Eric Bana movie. So he went pretty hard into CG land. I will say I saw Life of Pi once, and I did like it. I really did like it, but I don't know how I feel now. I feel kind of conflicted on Ang Lee because he is talented, but his last couple movies, I don't know if you know, but he directed a movie called Billy Lynn's like Halftime Walk, and he shot it in 120 frames per second.
Ugh.
Yeah, and it's just like a Iraq veteran kind of movie. It's his most recent movie. He did Gemini Man with Will Smith, which that was shot in 60 frames. So he's doing these just like weird things as a filmmaker where I
He's
think
just playing with technology. Kind of like Scorsese, the last few Scorsese movies.
Or
I
Cameron.
appreciate that you're trying, yeah, I appreciate that you're trying something new, but at the same time, it's not as good as just standard 30 frames widescreen, little CGI.
Yeah, I think he's just kind of lost creatively. I don't think he's really finding stories that he wants to tell. These last two movies, it's like, why are you doing this? I remember when Peter Jackson did, it's like the first Hobbit movie, and he was bragging about, 48 frames per second, I shot this, and it's like, this is the future. And it's like, no, this is not the future.
Yeah.
It's not.
It looks bad. It looks jarring, and it looks bad.
Yeah. I mean, soap operas are shot in 60 frames per second. That's why people call it the soap opera effect. It's just sad to see, especially when I, rewatch something like this. This has more of a classic film kind of feel. And it's sad to see where he's at kind of creatively now. I don't know if you saw Gemini Man or whatever, but
I passed on Gemini Man.
Yeah, it's not good.
Most Will Smith movies these past decade or two, I've had no desire to watch, frankly. He's well past the age of, okay, I'll see it just because he's entertaining and he's charismatic.
Yeah, we're definitely over that, for sure.
All right, that was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
我很惊讶您的共产党政府允许您看这部电影，是不是飞行超自然？